some persons have been asking as well, well, how do you decide who is going to be minister or so? And I want to just say that, we have always been a party that preaches about continuity. We've been a party that preaches about making sure that the person who is best for the job is in the job. And initially, of course, the individual that we had put forward to be Minister of Rami was Rayon Peterson. And due to what we still maintain is the governor using his subjective opinion to hold back his appointment, therefore delaying basically to wait for the outcome of the Supreme Court ruling on a case related to national ordinance in Curacao. Mr. Peterson could not be Minister of Rami. So what ended up happening is that we had Patrice Gums, who was our Minister Plenipotentiary at the time, was in the Netherlands. And ultimately, when the snap election was called, I said, we cannot leave. We were on the verge of submitting our next for Rami, which was Luciano Nichols. And then, ultimately, we could not do that. When the snap election was called, when government fell and Parliament was dissolved and snap elections were called, even though the MP who dropped government basically came back to the fold a couple of days later, ultimately we were told that, oh, you can't screen anyone new. For the Veronica, the Minister of VSF, Veronica Janssen-Webster, was acting Min Rami. Now, Ms. Webster was doing her utmost best, and I have to commend her on that because handling two very big ministries is not simple. She communicated well with the Rami cabinet that was, trying to organize work just for her to be able to review and then move forward. But ultimately, I made a decision as party leader to pull back Patrice, not just because he was already screened, and he was already there, but because ultimately he also can do the job of Minister of Rami, which he has been doing very well. Patrice, was in foreign relations, where he was actually responsible for energy transition, which gives him good insight into that. Additionally, he minored in environmental policy. So facets of what we would want to see happen outside, coming from the Ministry of Rami, sustainable development, environmental protections, and such. He's basically in that. So when I put him in the role, I knew that he would succeed, and it has been going very well. We've gotten rave reviews from persons within the ministry, persons working at our electricity company, GEBE, persons in the different industries that support our tourism industry, persons who have ultimately regular Simatnas who've been waiting 3-4 years to be able to build their home or to be able to amend something at their home. They have actually they gave me a lot of positive feedback. So that just supported the goal already of continuity in government. So we went forward with that. And I said, okay, now that we have Rami and ECYS, I will leave Patrice in that ministry. And ultimately, when I looked at ECYS, what I believed they needed was a good manager. A good manager who, has come into something broken and kind of turned it around, And I, of course, as party leader, I offered that post to MP De Weaver, coming from what she has accomplished at GB. I said, well, this would be a good challenge as well. It needs a good manager to look at it from a top-down perspective, but also someone that can build cohesion amongst people. And ultimately, I offered it to MP De Weaver. But, of course, with the explanation that we're leaving Patrice in Vrami because that is where, he is. Continuity is not just about the person for the job. It's also, and what weighed heavily for me was the ministry. This is a ministry that has come off of 4 years of what some of the workers in there themselves will tell you was basic just neglect and confusion. And as someone who's worked in private sector and who has in 1 year had, I think it was a year and a half, I had 12 different managers. My manager changed 12 different times when I worked for a trust company in the Netherlands due to many upheavals that they were having structure-wise, merger and acquisition-wise. It takes a lot out of you as a worker to get accustomed to someone new. So that also paid into the continuity that I wanted to keep going as party leader when I looked at holistically how could we best support the workers in the Ministry of Rami and then also the workers in the Ministry of ECYS. So ultimately, though, MP Weaver, as I said in my statement that went out on WhatsApp, um, to our membership, to our community group, and everything, decided to stay in Parliament. So that is, moving forward from there. I myself then am going to step into the role of ECYS. All things, going well with the screening. I paid my taxes, so yeah, we should be good. But yeah, so now what happens is the governor has appointed the Prime Minister, Dr. Luc Mercelina, as formateur, and he will now submit once again all the documentation from all of the minister candidates. Yes, even the ones who are already sitting there, to be screened, and essentially, well, rescreened for the ones that are already sitting there to make sure nothing has changed between May and now. And then, yeah, that screening process will begin. And then we will see how it goes. And I think it's just three new persons that are coming in. So at VSA, Ms. Janssen Webster is actually going to move to Parliament, and current MP Brugge, Reginald Brugge, is going to go up into executive as the Minister of VSA. I myself am being screened for the Ministry of ECYS. And of course, the SAM party has selected Natalie Tackling as the candidate minister for Minister of Justice. Something that I'm very happy about from a professional perspective. I believe Natalie has what it takes. She has the knowledge, the temperament, and the know-how to be able to make that ministry a very positive one. So, and I'm looking forward to the very pragmatic way that I know she's going to bring about her management of that particular ministry. So that's essentially what's happening with formation right now.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
It's hurricane season. Are you prepared? Here are a few tips to remember to help keep you and your family safe. If you're not in an area that is advised to evacuate and you decide to stay in your home, plan for adequate supplies in case you lose power and water for several days and you're not able to leave due to flooding or blocked roads. This hurricane season, make a family emergency communication plan. This public service announcement was brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
E6 is involved also with an agricultural program or research at least. Isn't it possible for us to access funding to ensure that the training that is mentioned, if it's not fully funded by the EU, that we look into funding via the TWO in collaboration with the E6 project or program for reforms in this area? I was also happy to hear that the USM research regarding agriculture has been finalized in June. This at least shows that the initiative started by the previous administration did not stop, and that the work done within the community outside of government is also being taken along. I would like to know, though, through you, Madam Chair, how does the ministry and or the minister aim to utilize this research, as well as how are we collaborating all these separate initiatives that are ongoing to ensure the goals and the vision for agriculture in St. Martin are met? So what exactly is this E6 project that started in June and would end in December 2026? What is the yearly expectation for that project? Because that now spans 2 full years and a half. I would like to also commend any opportunity for collaboration within the region on the promotion of agriculture. I can remember our forays in the different discussions we've had with Caribbean nations at big events like the United Nations General Assembly, where we all spoke on food security, climate change impact on our small island developing states, and the opportunities that are already available within the EU funding programs. Has the minister had any further discussions? We hear about the collaborations externally, but within government itself, with the Ministry of General Affairs and the Department of BUC specifically, who has some knowledge as to what the other OCTs have already done, whether it's with hydroponics, whether it's with other agricultural projects, because as the former, what was it? I had to sign off as Prime Minister at that time on those projects within the OCTs, and so we saw Anguilla and others doing projects. Isn't it possible for us to not reinvent the wheel also and collaborate in that way? So looking at what OCT projects have already taken place over the past couple of years to ensure that we are not reinventing the wheel and can save time, energy, because we already collaborate in other areas. So that is just a suggestion, if that has not yet been done. As it relates to Saint Martin, I was happy to see within the presentation that meetings have been held. I believe the fisheries conference that was recently held was one where our sole representative, Mr. Butcher, was one of the representatives there. There is also a slaughterhouse on the French side. I heard that it was closed, but at least this is an area for me where I feel if something is already on the island being so small, we could then collaborate with our French neighbors in either collaborating in how it is funded or whatever, but that any slaughtering would take place in that area and we both benefit from it, just like we're collaborating in water and hopefully in energy soon with our northern neighbors. We're definitely one island. I heard about the discussions on climate change and how that affects us, and it is affecting our fisheries as well. I didn't hear much, though, in terms of the plan moving forward for fisheries and how we would be protecting our fishermen and women. That conference did include Anguilla and St. Bart's, and so whatever we're doing moving forward, I would suggest that we include deliberations with those partners as well as Sabre and Statia, because of the Sabre Bank situation and the moratorium sometimes on fishing for whether it's conch or lobster, which impacts our tourism project as well.
Also, but I would like to ask, adding to what my colleague MP Jacob mentioned, in regards to the schools, when will the project start? Or has it started already? I didn't get that from the presentation. I did understood that something was going to start next month, but I wasn't clear if one of the projects already started. So I would like to have more information through you, Madam Chair, on the different projects, the school agri initiative and also the hydroponics, to know the details of those two projects. Also, what I would like to ask through you, Madam Chair, in regards to the collaboration, for example, with the Justice Ministry. I know, for example, that Turning Point is actively busy with agriculture, and I was wondering if the Minister together with the Minister of Justice, also looked into collaborating within the House of Detentions and MLC to see that as a rehabilitation, as a resocialization program, to also create jobs from within. I do believe it used to happen in the past, but it has stopped. So I was wondering if the ministry has looked into the collaboration with the other ministry.
You mentioned that the budget, that the budget is not enough for agriculture at the moment, but you did not mention what exactly would be an ideal amount for us to actually run not only run the department, but also run all the different projects that your ministry intend to execute. A follow-up question also, it was hinted by one of the previous speaker before me. What is the ministry thought in the community farming? What is the ministry thought in community farming? And also, with regard to one of the issues that was stated is that the scarcity of land. That's one of the issues that St. Martin face. So my question is, considering that I'm not sure if the zoning policy is completed or is still being worked on, but is it perhaps an idea that we can have a conversation perhaps with your counterpart, Minister of Romy, or whoever is dealing with that, to see if maybe we can allocate specific lands specifically for farming, especially if government still owns lands out there, that we can allocate it specifically for farming.
You mentioned my uncle, Joseph Richardson, but I also want to recognize my grandfather, actually, Walter Richardson, who I consider a pioneer and a forefather of agriculture on the island when it comes to farming, and also not just farming, but championing agriculture and fighting for farmers over the last couple of decades. And over the years, I see that some of the concerns that he had back then, I would go to the fields with him 10, 11, 12 years old. And even though I was a lot younger then and might not understand the plight that he had then or the vision he had then, I do see it now, and some of the concerns that he had then still exist today. So on the field, for example, when he would be at Ilme Wilson Park, I believe Mr. Bushman also used to be there in the back, he would say to me that, look, we are here working every day, and we are tilling the ground, and we need support from the government. You know, we have housing, the government supports everything else but agriculture, which we need to sustain ourselves. And one of the things he did, he built a well. He said, okay, I have the well, but now we need help from government, which he didn't get at the time, to fill the well. So my question is, were there any conversations with GB in terms of a special tariff for farmers? So he said we can't have commercial tariffs or even household tariffs. We need a special tariff specifically for farmers. Has there been any discussion with GB on this? Also, while being in office, I also fought with GB on the same topic also, not just having a tariff for farmers, but actually having a tariff for products that are produced locally using water. So, for example, you have St. Martin Beer, SXM Beer, you have our local water company, you have farmers. These are companies that cannot exist without using water. So it's very unfair, I would say, or very impractical to have them being charged commercial rates or higher, or even household rates for something that they are using to sell as a product. So if we are talking about selling our local products, I think we really need to have a lower tier for these specific entities going forward. It was a discussion that I brought up with GB. I was even looking into the legislation at that time. I think it fell on a TIAT and collaboration with TIAT, potentially Romy. But I think if we really want to start to promote these other businesses, we need to have a special tariff specifically for them. Like I said, I enjoy the presentation, and what it does, it shows our potential, but what I don't want to create is an impression to the farmers that some of these initiatives will be executed in the short term. And the main reason why, because I believe the presentation does not show, or there's a lack of financing or finances connected to the presentation. Actually, during the whole presentation, I don't think I saw any numbers connected to the presentation for the majority of it. So, like the previous question, the discussion about a agriculture department, what does this look like? What does the cost of this department look like? What is the timeline that this government has to establish this agriculture department? It was a discussion before with the former head, Ms. Valia Pantaflet. So I believe something has started, but what is the timeline for this department? And obviously, I'm assuming it will be in phases. So can we get a breakdown of the next, let's say, 4 years in terms of cost per phase? And will we see this not just in the presentation, but can we expect to see this in the amended budget 2024 or budget 2025?
SXM, your social and health insurance. SXM, your social and health insurances.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV.